welcome to the channel. I'm Summer. Today we are taking this long, all one length, no layered haircut, and we are transforming it into having what I call surface layers, which are gonna be nice, soft layers so you can get a little movement through the hair, whether you wear it straight or curled. This is gonna be perfect for fine, thin-haired clients as well. Let's go. All right, we are gonna hop right in today. As you can see, this mannequin has completely one length hair. There is no layers to it at all one length. And I'm going to be cutting her dry today. And the reason for that is I'm wanting to create sort of surface layers that are just kind of on that outer portion of the hair. I want to leave this underneath as thick and full as possible. This is going to be ideal layers for those with finer or thinner hair types. This way we get a little bit of movement on the surface, but the interior is not jeopardized as far as removing a ton of length, and it's going to be more of a medium to long layer. So I'm going to get her sectioned off on the ear at both sides, and then we will start creating her layers. Okay, and then also the reason for cutting it dry is, especially with those finer or thinner hair types, you really can fully see the hair laying exactly as it is. So this mannequin, after I got her color prepped, I went ahead and blew it out. I flat ironed it so I got it nice and smooth. So I would recommend doing that with a client. You don't want their hair, it doesn't have to be stick straight, but if it has a wave or anything, go ahead, smooth it out. That way you can see exactly the canvas you're working with. So that way you know you're not gonna take out too much hair. So now that we have the front separated from the back, what we're gonna do is come in right at our center to begin our layers. And if you want, you can section the hair you're not cutting out of the way. Typically with dry hair, I find that actually to be the easier option. And we'll do the same on the other side. It's about an inch wide section, I would say. And so these are going to be done a little bit different than I do my typical layers. We're gonna be over directing and pulling everything up and forward towards the front. So what you'll do is we have our first section here. We're gonna comb it completely out. You're coming up and we're gonna over direct, let all that hair fall out. Look how much weight we're leaving here. And then to cut your layer, what we're gonna do, so I have my arm is basically right in front of the face. I am looking at my longest length here in my knuckle. I'm gonna connect it to the inner corner of my finger. So showing you from standing up, I've got my longest pieces in here and I'm connecting it to the inner corner. So we're gonna be cutting in a diagonal. So you can see that line there. It led up to my longer point. Then what I'm gonna do, as you let this out, you see that angle, it's gonna flow nicely into the rest of that hair. And then what we wanna do to blend it is you're gonna grab your whole piece again. We're gonna lift, and you're just gonna come straight out. Let all that hair fall, and we're just gonna soften up what's here in the middle. And then that blends in so nice and just creates a really nice soft surface layer. It almost still looks one length. And we're gonna continue doing that all through the sides, the back of the head, until we get to our sides, and then we're gonna adjust how we cut. So I'm gonna let this out. I'm gonna take my next section of hair here, clip this out of the way. I'm gonna take my previous guide and I'm gonna split it in half. And notice this is about the same size section as my first guide was. And we're just gonna do the same thing again. So take this hair, we're coming all the way out, up, over directing forward. My arm is at the front of the face. My fingers are twisted up. I see my guide, cut. You wanna cut where you're creating an angle. You don't want to cut just straight across. You want to go into it at an angle. And then as you're taking the rest of the hair to blend in that middle, you're twisting and just cut that little hair that's left out. And that just flows really nice. So we're gonna cut our guide in half. Take our next section to add it to our guide. Similar size sections for every time you go to cut the hair. And just keep repeating those same movements. And remember, you're creating surface layers. That's how I like to explain this. I don't know how other stylists would, because you're not wanting to like cut a heavy layer. You want it really soft and smooth just to add a bit of texture, because again, this is great for somebody with fine or thin hair that just wants some movement, but they don't want to jeopardize the weight and thickness that their hair naturally may have. All that hair is out. And then what I like to do on the back corner sections here at the ear, I like to over direct it back just slightly. This is because you see this hairline, it goes up here. So you no longer have the same weight line. So if you cut this too short, you're gonna automatically create a hole here because you don't have the same hairline that's in here. Hopefully that's making sense to you guys. So that's why I like to over direct it back to extend the length. So you're gonna do the same thing. This is gonna come back to that previous section, and you're gonna do the same thing still, twisting it up. You've just pulled it back to your previous guide. And you'll have just a little hair on that top to cut. All right, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come back to our center guide that we cut. Doesn't have to be perfectly in the center. Or I should say, it doesn't have to be perfectly exactly where your previous guide was, but you want to come back to it so you can have that as a guide for the other side of the head. I'm going to see where that is. Taking my section. We're coming up, twisting, my hand is right on the head of the client, so I'll show you again. And cut. Bring it out, twist, just lightly that middle outer section. It's a lot of pulling all the way out and twisting, and obviously over directing. So always remember that, over direct and always pull out, and that's how you're gonna create that surface type of a layer. And then don't forget, when we are to that corner here of the ear, you want to over direct this back to preserve the weight, to make sure you don't create a hole here. So we're gonna come, we're gonna be combing this all the way back to the center guide. So I'm on the opposite side of the head and I'm pulling it towards me, straight up, over directing, coming forward. Use your other hand is here to let me know where I'm at. And you're just gonna cut up into it because you're on the other side. All right, so now that we have done the bulk of our, well, we've done the back layers, not the bulk of them. What I like to do is take some really big pieces at a time. I kind of will break it up into almost like 4 quadrants to just do sort of a quick check. The thing with this type of layer where it's more on the surface, you're not gonna have as much that you have to go through and correct just because you're really not taking out a ton. But I just like to do bigger sections. I'm pulling out and doing my little twist and just nip out, point cut into any hairs that might have not gotten cut. And that'll just help to keep things blended and soft. Just a little bit over here. All right, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna move into our front pieces. I'm gonna start with her heavier side. Again, this is all one length, and I'm not gonna be cutting a ton of a face frame. I'm gonna first cut my layers, and then I'll go in and decide what I wanna, this piece didn't wanna stay on that side, what I wanna blend. Okay, so the back, we brought everything forward. The front, we're gonna bring everything back. And why that is because when you're in the back of the head, when you over direct forward, you're preserving more length and weight. And then when you're in the front of the head, when you pull back, you're preserving more length and weight. So I'm just gonna take my section from my side, right at that ear, and we're going to be bringing this completely back. And we're, instead of angling up, we're gonna be coming straight back towards us, twisting, cut. And then I'm gonna bring that up, twist, and just cut. And you're just lightly cutting that layer. Again, these are long, soft layers. So we have our next guide. We're combing back towards you. Back, twist, cut. Bring everything up, twist, cut. I mean, it's baby hairs at this point. And we're gonna do that all the way to the front of the face. And then usually the piece right along the face, you don't have as much to cut at all, just because of how much you're over directing. Okay, so I'm gonna let that out for now. Obviously, we don't have any face frame. I am gonna come in, I think, and clean that up some. I just wanna get this other side done first. Gonna do the same thing. Everything's gonna go back towards the center of the head. Twist, let all that hair fall. Cut. Bring it up a little higher, twisting still. Cut. And then again, I'm not taking crazy big sections. I'm doing the same sizes basically that I was in the back. Get that previous guide. So I would say if you are somebody with finer, keep dropping my comb. If you're somebody with finer, thinner hair, I would try to explain to your hairstylist that because of that, you want to keep as much weight as possible, but you want some layers and that you'd prefer them to be like the front over directed back to maintain your weight. Same with the back being over directed towards the front to really just skim the very top section of your hair. You can come in and just skim again, bigger sections, and just see if there's any little hairs you missed. Right there. And then I'm gonna do that on the other side first. Big section. Her head is coming loose. Yep, got a little hair there. And just a little bit. All right, so now what we're gonna do is think about how we wanna create our face frame. It's all really long, it looks nice and thick, but I wanna open up the face some, just so it's not so like dragging down and hanging down her face. This will be nice too if you go to curl the hair, you'll get a little bit more movement and just some soft swoopiness. Okay, so when cutting this, I want to still think of the face frame in the same way as I did the rest of the layers, where it's just on the surface. We're not coming in and really cutting into it. We want to just skim this outer bit. So if I comb all her hair down, I can see that a lot of her weight and thickness comes from this very front piece of hair here. If I were to take that out, I mean, granted the mannequin has a lot of thickness, but if I were to just cut all of this up, you don't have that same like full thick look. So I wanna maintain sort of this inner corner of it, or outer corner, I should say, of this whole section. And I just wanna skim this inner corner. I don't wanna cut too hard into it. I just want a nice like soft wispiness just coming along here, but we're maintaining the bulk of her weight and length here, which is very, very key for people who have fine, thin hair, especially in the front, and the sides tend to grow the slowest. So I am like super, super particular about my face framing. I cut it 9 times out of 10. I've got like 2 girls that I trust to fully cut it, that I work with, but otherwise I am like so picky because if it's cut too much, it's not laying how I want it to. So because I can see that this is coming from this front section, I'm gonna automatically, so let's say I had about, let's say that first piece was about that size. I'm gonna cut this in half because I don't wanna cut it. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't wanna cut into it at all. So I'm gonna cut it in half. So I know I have this weight is here and I'm gonna push that back. I'm gonna grab on this other side of the hair. This side of the hair is thinner because we're on the part. So the side that the hair is parted to is always gonna be thicker, where this side is not. I'm not gonna cut as much here because there's less hair to grab from. So I'm not gonna make them dead even. I'm gonna make this piece of hair a little bit less, and I can always add more after the fact. So again, just take a look at it. You've smoothed out the client's hair so that way you know exactly how it's gonna lay if they wanna wear it stick straight. I wanna skim the outer corner. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find where I want my guide first. Let's say we're gonna take it just below the chin. You can still pull it back and tuck it behind the ear, but it'll open it up nice enough. I'm gonna stand on the opposite side of the head. And what we're gonna do is I'm literally just gonna sliver and I'm gonna pull towards me as I go down. So I'm not cutting into that. I'm extending the length. And we've removed like a good chunk here, actually. But it doesn't look like we've cut like all this weight out. And we could probably do a little bit more, but just to show you, it's better to do smaller amounts at a time because you can always go back in and cut more. So that gives her a little bit of shape. We're gonna let that down, and then I'm just gonna lightly cut and blend this into the rest of her hair. Because again, I've set my guide already, and I know I'm not gonna jeopardize the rest of this weight that's back in here. Just gonna come in, cut, and just almost you can do it visually. You don't even necessarily have to hold your hair, the hair in your hands. Sometimes it's better to do it visually so you can really see exactly what you're cutting. And then I'm gonna bring this down and across. I'm twisting. It's just that last little bit here, nipping that. Now, if somebody wanted to take more weight out, you certainly could. Technically, I should for this purpose, just because the mannequin has so much hair compared to a human, but on a human, this would be like perfect. I would love this in my own hair, actually. So I'm gonna cut it just a tiny, tiny bit more just because it's a mannequin and she does have so much hair. Bring that over and across and just connect. And now to match up on the other side, we need to just grab a little bit from our guide here. Let that hang, make sure you know where it is. And then I just like to take my starting corner piece. I see it's right in here where I need to match. Cut. It's nice and even there. And then you're just gonna do the same thing. Take this down. You can visually look at it if you wanted to. Let me clip this out of the way just so I don't cut it. And we're gonna angle, pulling towards you. And then what you can do is stand directly in front of the client. And they're matching up nicely. This side wants to shrink, but they are, might just be a touch longer right in here with the length. And then again, you can bring this over, cross the face, and just cut into any little hair there to soften the point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm gonna do a little bit of curling just so you can see more so of a bend in the hair. I'm not gonna like hardcore curl it, but just so you can see a little bit more shape. And then before I do that, I'll show it to you what it looks like completely straight here. All right, here we have our finished look with it straight. I went ahead and reshaped it to give a little bit of bend to those layers so you can see it has a little bit more movement compared to the all one length, but we have still kept so much weight all throughout the hair, again, because we are just creating those surface layers. They are meant for that outer layer of hair. You are not wanting to cut into this hair a ton. And then all through the sides, beautiful movement. The back looks great. And then here it is curled as well, so you can see it with all its fun texture, really springing up those layers as well. I love the look of both of these, straight or curled. I love it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you on the next one.